We specialize in financing entrepreneurs such as yourselves. We stray away from some of the large companies because they go to their local banks primarily. So one other thing I want everybody to know throughout the presentation is that we feel it's very important you're dealing with a lending partner that understands your business, your background, how you're going to make money during this new laundry venture. Okay? So a couple of key topics I wanted to talk about. What you can expect when you enter the process. Okay? Another thing too, it's easy. It's not painstaking as long as your story is compiled on the front end. Okay? Project considerations too. As we've talked about already today, there are a variety of project considerations. Whether you're going to acquire a new store, an existing store and put new equipment into it, whether it's a brand new location, whether you're going to lease, whether you're going to rent, and we'll touch base on some of those things. All part of the story, okay? We're compiling a story here. And process. What you can expect when you have your story compiled and we're going into the underwriting process, what can you expect? You can surely expect a phone call, okay? But we'll get into some of those things, all right? In terms of what to expect here, there are a variety of custom finance options that are offered in the open marketplace right now. As a first step, your local bank. You're looking to get into the business, head over to one of your local banks, check them out. There's also third parties such as a U.S. Capital. There's also manufacturers that offer finance programs as well that it would be worth looking into. Full financial disclosure, again, something that's very important. We work with a variety of entrepreneurs. We've had baseball players come to the table saying that they wanted to get into the laundry business, apartment building owners, restaurant owners, folks that have never even had a business before in their past, folks that have had relatives that have owned businesses, those that have never owned businesses, those that are looking for something to do on the weekends. Those are all individuals that we financed in the past. And up front, you can expect that the bank or banks, whatever you're working with, is going to want full financial disclosure. I think it's really important to touch base on that too, because some folks out there have had credit challenges in the past. We're the type of an institution that the credit challenges should all be presented on the front end. Everything should be put on the table. There shouldn't be anything that's hidden. And that's something that's different than in the past. You know, there have been entrepreneurs in the past, and I don't want to say this group by any means, but you know, you try to make the situation, let's put a little whipped cream on this, it looks a little better here. Really, the banks are open to lending money based on any scenario nowadays. So just remember, full financial disclosure, and don't be hesitant with it, okay? Banks also like to see a contribution into the project. It helps mitigate any perceived risk that the bank has, and it also shows that you folks have a level of skin in the game. I would say that it is rare nowadays with the expectation level to go into a bank or work with a third-party entity, such as a U.S. Capital, thinking that you're not going to have to put any money in on the front end. Okay, so the skin is really important. How much skin? Again, depends on the situation. Everybody's situation is different. It's all part of the overall story that we're building, okay? Sure. Well, it depends. On good question. On an acquisition type of a transaction, a bank, you know, a local bank wants to see some level of skin in. You could be talking upwards of 25% of the acquisition cost, okay? Then you throw in potentially, if you're going to add new equipment into the mix, and we'll touch on all that. You know, that's all part of the overall project. So when you're compiling the story, you know, we're making the assumption in this presentation that you've already acquired the laundromat, but in some cases, the acquisition and new equipment purchases could all be part of the overall project. All right, so again, it's going to vary. The more, the better to the bank, right? Does that help? Okay. Okay, so the contribution to the project, again, varies. It's all part of the story, and we'll get further into that as we go on here. An analysis of the location. Excellent presentations from earlier. That's all part of the story again, so you're going to look at the demographics, you're going to look at the staple stores if you're in a strip center. What's another area of revenue? Is there Family Dollars here? Is there a Walmart? What are these other locations that are across the street, that are in the vicinity? How is money going to come into that location? Okay? And we briefly touched on the last presentation on an analysis of profitability. The turns per day is something everybody needs to know. How many turns per day is this laundromat going to generate for me? Okay, and that's important because the bank is going to look at that, and they're going to look at the washer mix, they're going to look at the dryer mix that's in the laundromat location, they're going to look at the size of the machines, whether they're smaller machines, whether they're larger machines, and they're going to say, how much profitability can really be generated on this? Okay? So the bank's going to look into all that detail, and obviously the more turns per day, the better, the more money everybody can make. Now, I do want to add that from U.S. Capital's standpoint in financing coin laundromats, we really like the coin laundry industry. The loss rate with our banking partners for the past 26 years is far below any of our other industries. Okay, the construction industries, technology, all sorts of other industries. So we have an excellent track record of success with our banking partners. Partner with a lending partner who understands the laundry business. That's our motto. All part of the big story that we have here. We do hear stories. We have customers that come to us quite often that say, I've tried going to my local bank. They don't understand how I'm going to make money in this business. It's very challenging looking at sellers' tax returns, sellers' profit and loss statements, and it's challenging for banks, in some cases local banks, to get their arms around it. So there is hope out there. Money is available. There are lending partners that do understand the laundry business extensively. We suggest that be your first stop, if your local bank says, I'm not interested in this. As part of that, there are some of our lending partners that are okay financing the real estate portion of a transaction. So the questions were brought up earlier about whether or not we should have real estate owned or rented as part of a deal. It gets back to the custom finance options as well. Everybody's going to have a different story here, okay? So the story, again, is important, and that's what we are. We're storytellers on our end. We get the banks to buy into your story. Any questions to this point? Yes, ma'am. Again, all part of the story. We like to believe, and I'm one option. There are many different options that exist, through the Coin Laundry Association. As Brian said earlier, they have a variety of partners. But we're most competitive for the better credit profile individuals. We're very competitive as well for those folks that maybe have had some challenges in the past. Okay, we finance folks that, if anybody in here has had past bankruptcies, medical issues that have come up in the past, power utility issues that, linger on for years, thousands and thousands, you're still working out, IRS issues. It's all part of the story. If there's payment plans with the IRS, no problem, still a financeable individual. But we specialize in just the story, and everybody's story is different. So it's very hard for me to dive into that. Yes, sir. Great question. We'll touch on that too as part of the discussion here. The lending partners that exist in the laundromat business offer both variable and fixed rates. Okay? On average, let's go ahead and dive into that right now then. On average, you will see a new store, depending on the dollar amount of the acquisition with possibly new equipment involved, go out to 84-month terms, possibly even 96-month terms. You start getting into SBA loans, you're going out 10 years plus, okay, where there's potentially real estate involved. But we, as a matter of practice, like offering fixed rate financing because we believe the economy starting to come up a little bit. It's a good time to get into the business. We believe rates are going to be on the rise. Okay. Any other questions really quick? Okay, yes, sir. Sure, I'll tell you one. I talked about the baseball player originally. And let me tell you this too, go ahead. No, since the beginning of the year, we have turned down one entrepreneur out of all of the transactions that we've seen across the country. So again, I think we're pretty good storytellers, but one professional baseball player in minor leagues wants to get into the business, an individual that doesn't have much cash, right? Comes to the table, says he has, well, I shouldn't say much cash, $100,000, wants to do a $400,000 project. Wife had a past bankruptcy. He had no credit, and that's another thing too that the banks look at. If there's no previous borrowing experiences, they look at that and they say, okay, we're going to go from no borrowing experience all of a sudden up to several hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a challenge, okay? So we try to mitigate those types of risks. But the baseball player, we were able to get him a laundromat. Situations vary. It was renting, the rent that he was paying was actually a good dollar amount. The profitability numbers were there. The equipment was energy efficient equipment, from a water and a gas utilization standpoint, it was very low. So it actually made sense, So we again just told that story and we talked about the resume of the individual too, relatives that have had past business ownership experiences. Kind of never really had to work for anybody in their life, kind of individuals as well. Folks that have had family members that are past convenience store owners, that have owned restaurants, that are interested in putting laundromats next door to the restaurants. Those are the types of stories we like to tell, that they have proven track records if they have past business ownership experience, or how are they going to be successful in this new venture based on their life experiences to date. Okay? Okay, again, I talked project considerations briefly earlier. New versus existing locations. The banks are very interested in that. With new locations, you're talking about a variety of additional expenditures that may arise as part of this, such as increased build-out expenditures. Okay, build-out expenditures to get the plumbing in a new strip center location, potentially impact fees to tie into the sewer lines. There may be increased expenditures going into a new location versus an existing location that already has the plumbing in place, that has already paid the impact fee in the past. Okay? New versus used equipment mix. When you're acquiring an existing location, what equipment is going to be replaced as part of you being the new owner of that location? What equipment's going to stay? How big are the machines that are used? We talked maintenance expenditures earlier, all part of the mix. Okay? Large versus small locations. To John's point earlier, there are smaller locations that could potentially be much more, revenue generators than larger locations. And vice versa. There are also, we've seen, some large locations that are outstanding. Again, part of the story in terms of the surroundings of the laundromat. Okay, other locations that are nearby, parking locations, walking distance, all these things. We really need to understand the locations we're going into, okay, before we go into them. Standalone or strip, standalone, there may be real estate involved. From a banking standpoint, if you're going to be purchasing a building, the bank may say, okay, did you pay cash for the building, or are you borrowing the money for the building? Big difference, part of the story. The bank prefers that you pay more out of pocket for build-out expenditures, the purchase of a building, rather than loaning money to acquire, then loaning money to fix it up, then loaning money for equipment. So the level of skin in the game is really important. And with strip centers, that's where folks that have restaurants and strip centers, if the restaurant's there and they want to have the laundry open next door, again, all part of the story. Everybody's situation is different and every location is different. But the banks, this is basically what the banks are looking at. The own versus rent we touched on, and then we also touched on the surroundings. Very important. We actually craft a site analysis on every location as well as a supplement to the demographic studies, because the site analysis will show things that the demographic analysis will not show. How are other things around here going to make money or make the laundromat money? Process. Everybody's favorite topic. Full financial disclosure is a must. And we suggest in anybody's personal situations, anybody's past business ownership situations, everything up front. It makes things easier, right? And the banks are willing to listen to the stories. They want to listen. Even if there's no issues, everything up front, okay? And we do have situations, though, and that's why I talk about it, where there's a husband that may want to get into a business, but they don't have the best credit, so let's put everything in the wife's name. The banks really don't like that. They want to see both of you get in. They like everybody getting in. And they're willing to listen to the stories. The contribution into the project we talked about, the more, the better from a banking standpoint. More skin in the game means that you as entrepreneurs are less likely to take a hike should things not go so well or other things arise, okay? An analysis of the project profitability, again, the turns per day, the site analysis, things that, they're best guesstimates based on knowledge that we already have. But the banks are going to look at that, and it's all part of the story. And then lastly, a proposal that comes out to you as entrepreneurs that says, here's what we can do. The first proposal that comes out from a bank, from an entity such as me, if there's something that somebody doesn't like, no problem. Let's talk. Let's try to figure it out. I mean, we're in business to try to put you in business, in the laundromat business, okay? Yes, sir?
So Chris, if you're finding, how does that work?
Sure. Great question. The question was, if there's an LLC, an existing business entity where there's multiple partners, are you going to require personal guarantees ultimately where there's personal assets involved? All part of the story. Okay, so for example, we just recently had a large corporation that had a sister entity that the sister entity was going to get into the laundromat business. We used a corporate guarantee of the larger entity that had some relation to a certain extent into the laundromat business to help securitize the transaction. So to answer your question, banks like to see personal guarantees from entrepreneurs that get in the business, especially from those that do not have past business ownership experience or any proven track record of success. But there are other ways when there are business owners that have proven track records in other business areas. They may already have 5 laundromats. They want to get a 6th one. There are ways to do it. But as a matter of practice, when you go to a bank and you say, hey, I'm not sure I want to personally guarantee, it may be more of a turnoff than anything. Okay? But it varies. It really